Welcome back. Time now for The Clash. As you may have heard in my digest before the break, I have no reservations about labelling Insulate Britain total menaces and empathise with the furious motorists driven to lash out against them on the M25. But it shouldn't be down to commuters to do something about this band of climate anarchists. Our police need to step up their response to future protests and, more importantly, be proactive in cutting them off before they start. We'll debate whether authorities should down Insulate Britain protests in a moment. But first, let me bring in their spokesman, Liam Norton, who is in the studio today. Liam, so I don't know if you heard my digest tonight, but I think Insulate Britain is a terrorist organisation. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, Dan, thanks for coming on the show. It's nice to finally meet.
I know.
Had a few little interviews on Zoom in the past,
yes.
So it's nice to finally meet you. And look, tonight I really want it, you know, a lot of your YouTube clips on the video about Dan Wootton clashes. And what I really want tonight to be about is that we don't clash, where we can come to some understanding about, you know, that we can
I'll tell you how we
have
can,
some agreement.
I'll tell you the way that we can end up not clashing, Liam, if you stop blocking the M25. If you stop causing car accidents, if you stop causing people to miss out on life-saving operations, that's the way that we will end up not clashing. But can I just read you out the definition of the 2000 Terrorism Act? Because I just want you to be aware that what you're doing is terrorism.
Yeah.
So the 2000 Terrorism Act says that they use the threat of action to influence the government for the purpose of advancing a political or ideological cause. I presume you concede that you're doing that. And the action involves serious damage to property. You concede you're doing that?
In this campaign, what property would we damage?
Well, you're damaging the road.
The road, yeah.
Endangering lives. Do you concede you're doing that?
The government are endangering lives.
And creating a risk to the health or safety of the public. Do you concede you're doing that?
Again, the government are putting the health and safety.
You're just washing your hands of all responsibility.
No, it's a tragic situation, and I accept that the examples that you've given. We're still trying to find out the, you know, more about this woman. We don't know much about her, but our our sincere sympathies go to Chris. We don't know his surname. I believe.
Well, I'm sure Chris doesn't give a damn about that.
No, I just wonder if anybody knows who he is, that's all. But that's fine. But we offer...
Are you suggesting that Chris was some sort of plant and isn't telling the truth?
But I'd just like to just offer my sincere sympathy to Chris, but that's all I know.
Well, why don't you stop blocking the M25, Liam?
Because what we are, Dan, right, and, you know, we've spoke a few times, you know, and you say you're an environmentalist.
Yes, I am.
And
I always have been, Liam. But I don't believe in breaking the law. I don't believe in putting people's health at risk.
OK, so what Sir David King, do you know who Sir David King is? So the former chief scientific advisor to the British government. And he said back in February that what we do in the next 3 to 4 years will determine the future of humanity. Now, you're an environmentalist, Dan, yeah? Can you read between the lines in terms of what that statement means and the amount of work that we need to do
I could bring you a pile of statements this high of scientific advisors all around the world, including working for the UN, who have as early as 1974 warned that the world was going to end. And actually, one of the reasons why I take my particular position as an environmentalist is because when I was growing up in the 80s, I was scared stiff by activists like you telling me that the world was going to end because of the ozone hole issue. The world didn't end. You shouldn't be terrifying kids. The UK is doing more than any other Western country to cut down net carbon emissions. What's your issue? What's your problem? Why do you want to cause chaos and carnage on the streets?
Dan, you know, I'm not here to try and persuade you of anything because the argument, there is no argument anymore. And so I'm not here to try and debate you.
But why are these the correct methods? Why are these the correct methods, Liam?
Because what Sir David King is saying is that we've got 3 to 4 years. And basically, we're not seeing... What we want to do is encourage the government to show some leadership on this issue. Now, Insulate Britain, what they're calling for is the best value for money.
So you want the government to pay to insulate all homes?
Pardon?
You want the government to pay to insulate all homes?
Yes.
No matter how rich you are?
Well, I mean, there can be some nuance into the statement. We want a meaningful statement from the government, and some of the details could be ironed out. But generally, yes. The 29 million homes in the UK, which are accepted as the leakiest in Europe, right? So they're not going to get insulated and retrofitted unless we do this national programme in terms of insulating and retrofitting. It's not going to get done.
And do you believe in personally leading this movement and practicing what you preach?
Are you going to hammer me for the Sun article on Sunday? So, look, Dan, I lived in social housing, right, mate? And this is the point.
Well,
right?
you now live in quite a nice house, I believe.
This whole scheme.
Well, no, Liam.
Dan, come on,
let me speak and you can respond. Why don't you want me to raise this?
Because
you don't want me to raise this because you're embarrassed about it.
No, I'm not embarrassed.
You are, because
you
live in quite a posh, nice house in southwest London. And
but
according to the Sun, Liam, it's single glazed, has no cavity wall insulation, and uses gas central heating. So you're not practicing what you preach at all, are you? Why have you not spent the money to insulate your home?
Dan, this is kind of like really. You could do better than this, mate.
Just answer the question.
Dan,
Liam.
You know me.
Answer the question.
You know that you could do better than this, mate. Right? So. And the thing is like you.
If I was turning the country upside down for a particular cause, I would make damn sure that the cause that I was propagating was something that I would follow.
Dan, you're struggling to.
Yeah, because I'm embarrassed for you, Liam. Because you're
embarrassed for me. Come on, mate. Look, you need to do a bit more investigation into that home because it's a social housing home, so it isn't posh, is it?
But you could pay to get it done up.
Well, whether I could or whether I couldn't, the truth is...
Why do you want the government to do everything for you, Liam? Don't you believe that this is in our hands? Why are you waiting for the government to pay to do this? Why don't you pay for it yourself? You're a well-off bloke.
Insulate Britain is about truth, looking at the reality, Dan, right? We need to look at the reality, and the reality is...
even if I could... your house not insulated?
Dan...
Just answer the question.
Dan, if I could insulate that house, that isn't the point here. There are millions of people that aren't going to, and that's the truth, mate, yeah? That's the truth. So all we're saying is that the job that needs to get done, if we leave it up to individual choice, you're not facing the reality that David King's talking about in terms of what we do in the next 3 to 4 years will determine the future of humanity.
I'll tell you what will determine the future of humanity.
Yeah, go on.
Over the next 3 to 4 years. What China does. And you seem to ignore that, Liam. I'd like to see you get on a plane and try and block the highways in China, but I presume you know that you would be shot if you did that.
Are you going to pay for that? For my plane?
Well, you should.
If you pay for it...
You should.
If you pay for it,
I'm not paying for it.
I'll go over there.
Raise the money yourself.
I'll go over and I'll speak to the ambassador.
Although it's tempting if we could see the back of you.
Dan, you're struggling to keep a straight face during this interview because
China,
I'm
not.
you know as well as I do that the whole China thing's ridiculous, and it doesn't take. Why are you being so down on Britain? You sound like a bit of a snowflake. You know, you're just giving Britain a hard time.
I'm sorry, mate.
We can get out of this mess.
You have blocked the M24 4 times in the past week. You're like a little child that thinks that's a cool thing to have done. You're proud of that. Do you not understand? You're ruining lives, you're ruining livelihoods, you're ruining people's health, and I find it truly despicable, and I think people like you should be locked up. I think you should be locked up because I don't believe this is a peaceful protest. I believe it's eco-terrorism.
Dan, we agree that Priti Patel's in a really difficult situation at the moment, and we sympathise with her in terms of her job in order to keep law and order in place. And we want to see law and order kept in place, because if we don't get this climate thing under control, law and order is going to fall apart.
The police have been lovely to you.
But Insulate Britain are talking about...
Police have been lovely. They're sort of offering you help. What's that about?
Well, you need to speak to the government about that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So why? I mean, get the government on here, but by the way, the government could end this tonight if they gave us a meaningful statement.
I do have a couple of other people to bring in, Liam. So you stand by and you take part in this as well. But let me bring in now the Tory MP Craig McKinlay, who is the leader of the Tories' Net Zero Scrutiny Group. And also joining us is Harry Wilkinson, who is Head of Policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation. So let me come first to you, Craig. You've heard what Liam was saying. He says the government, we should speak to the government about that. Obviously, you are a Tory MP, very concerned about these protests. What's your response?
Well, my response is we ought to be looking at the real cost of what Liam and his pals have been up to this week. You know, the people who've missed their hospital appointments, they've missed flights, business opportunities, things not being delivered, wasted food, people late for school, just general aggravation. It's no wonder they've picked on the M25, which is a key artery for London and the southeast. I mean, I'm the first to enjoy a good old protest. I've been on a few, but you do it in the right way, at the right time and in the right place. Doing this to people is frankly selfish. It's unfair. And, you know, I'm surprised at the softly policing that I've seen. I've been speaking out about it this week. I mean, there's a multitude of offences that I can see have probably been committed. And Liam and his friends should probably have been given very strict pre-charge bail conditions to make sure they don't do this again. Now, Liam, I'm not trying to deprive you of doing what you think is right. I mean, I could tell you that, you know, this government and ones before it, and we're on that track to actually do that insulation that you're so keen on. And, you know, people like myself will do that maths and go, do you know what? My energy price is this. I can save that with a bit of insulation. I'll come to my own conclusion.
Well, Liam,
we can't have the government just keep paying out all the time.
Very reasonable. This is the party that you have such a problem with. He's been completely reasonable, Liam.
Well, what I'd say is, look, it's not a conservative value to bet the farm, is it? And what the government at the moment doing, they're betting the farm. And what we're saying is, like, a stitch in time saves 99. What we're talking about is investment in the future and being reckless with the future of our children, etc., is not a conservative value. And that's what I'd like to say to the Conservative MP is, like, what we're talking about is conservative, you know, we're trying to conserve our nation. And what climate change will do is it will destroy our economy. It will destroy the very fabric. It will destroy the very
any other Western democracy, and that's something that you don't like to talk about. Dan. Let me bring Harry Wilkinson in now. He's head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation. Harry, what's your take on this?
Good evening, Dan. Well, I respect very much the right of people to protest, but just because we have the right to do something doesn't mean we should. We should have the right cause as well, and we should bear in mind the consequences of our actions. And in this case, we've seen Insulate Britain put so many people at risk. We've seen this poor woman who's been ill and hasn't been able to get into hospital, and they're putting their own lives at risk as well. Not only are they putting other people's lives at risk, they're putting their own lives.
Well, that's actually a really good point. Liam, are you prepared to die for this cause? Because if I was walking into the middle of the M25, I would be prepared to be run down by a car. Are you prepared to die for this cause?
I think people accept that that's a potential risk. But and that's the point, Dan, OK, is that, you know, unless we sort this crisis out, you know, this country's going to be destroyed. And we're talking about
But this isn't a democratic way to sort it out.
That's actually historically illiterate to suggest that, because we've seen through history that actually the power of
Set
protest
up a political party.
has been central to democracy. So you need to, like, look at the history books a little bit, Dan, because what we're doing has been shown throughout history to be a way of... there's certain things, right, that happen in history that are just moral. They're just about what's right and what's wrong. And the destruction of our country, the fabric of our society, to allow that to be destroyed cannot be tolerated.
Craig
and that's what Insulate Britain is about.
Let's let Craig McKinlay respond to that, because, Craig, this Tory government is doing more than virtually any other government in the Western world to achieve net zero. Why don't you educate Liam about that?
Well, absolutely. And, you know, Dan, you know, I've got my concerns about how fast we're doing these things, whether they're actually achievable, technologically possible, and whether the public will actually come along with us when they realise the costs involved. You know, I'm not a Conservative to make people colder and poorer.
No, and I'm with you. I'm with you.
To answer Liam, I mean, he really shouldn't be demonstrating here, because out of many Western governments or global, governments from all around the world, we're actually doing more than any other. We've reduced our carbon footprint faster than any other. I mean, the reality is, with Britain emitting just 1% of global CO2, if we were to go back to the Stone Age tomorrow, which I assume Liam would like, I don't think India, China, Indonesia and others will be taking too much notice, and they will be emitting at the same rate as they ever have been. So, I mean, I think Dan's suggestion that we have a whip round and get you on a plane to Beijing is a very good one. And you can have a go at the Beijing periphery or whatever they've got over there and see how you get on. But, you know, in reality, Liam, I understand your passion, and I always appreciate passion in campaigners. I really do. But the action is not in Britain. Britain is not the place that is emitting vast amounts of CO2 in an unchecked manner. That is happening elsewhere in the world. And if you think stopping people getting to work on the M25 is going to make a blind bit of difference to what China, Indonesia and India are doing, then I think you're, frankly, sir, in a bit of a dream world.
Liam?
I didn't catch the MP's name. What's his name?
Sorry, what?
Craig McKinlay.
Craig McKinlay, who's the head of the...
Craig.
Net Zero.
Craig, what I'd like to ask you about what is going on in Britain is the 28,000 people that died, excess winter deaths, the thousands of families that are losing people because they can't afford to heat their homes, and they have to make that awful decision between heating and eating. And that's the reality of 2021 in Britain. And I'd like to ask you what the Conservatives are doing about that.
Craig?
Well, do you not think that adding carbon taxes to the price of electricity, which are already vast, 10 to 12 billion pounds a year, is actually making the per kilowatt hour price of those that are suffering fuel poverty
Is it a good idea to
higher?
insulate then?
And there is discussion and talk about perhaps more carbon taxes going on to gas, which is the cheapest and easiest form of domestic heating. So if you're looking to make more people go into fuel poverty,
no, we want to
I think some of the policies that you advocate will actually do it. I fully
What about
support
insulation,
those
Craig?
easy moves of making Britain's homes more, cosy. And
What about
that is
Craig?
insulation. But I can assure you, Liam, that is happening at a very, very good rate, probably a faster rate than we've ever seen before.
Thousands of our old people were dying, Craig, so it's not happening quick enough, mate.
Harry Wilkinson, final word to you on
I just want to bring Liam back onto the science. He says there's no argument, but actually beyond the fact that climate change is happening and it's man-made, there's an enormous amount of uncertainty about the range of warming that we might expect or the impacts that would be. Insulate Britain said that billions of people would die because of climate change. This just isn't at all likely to happen. It's totally out of kilter with the science. So Insulate Britain are really imagining a version of the future that doesn't chime with science. It's completely fantastical. And so they're risking all these people's lives, and they're risking their own lives on the basis of an imaginary future that doesn't charm with the science.
As I said earlier, I'm not trying to persuade anyone here. Dan, again, like, they're like flat earthers of the climate debate. They are. They shouldn't even be on here. And it's like, you could do much better than getting these people onto this programme. They shouldn't be.
Do you not understand what GB News is about? I think you are an extremist. I think you're an extremist.
Dan.
No.
They are
not.
Nobody accepts this people's.
Harry has just said that he does believe in man-made climate change.
These people shouldn't, like. I mean, I'm not even going to debate with this guy because, like, they shouldn't even be. But why should they get to talk? You know, they're the flat earthers of the climate debate.
Harry, can you respond to that?
Well, so throwing insults around doesn't actually make an argument about the science about climate change.
I'm an electrician.
What we're actually, if we look at the objective facts, we can see that fewer people are dying from extreme weather events than ever before. We're living through an era of safety. We're living through an era of technological progress that has given us the highest quality of life than any other generation has had. So we have to look at the objective facts around this. We can't be scaremongered by people who are claiming all sorts of apocalyptic scenarios.
But it's not, Dan, just one sec on that, because it isn't apocalyptic what's going on with our old people that are dying, thousands of them each year. And all those arguments that you're making, they don't add up in terms of all those thousands of elderly that are dying. So it's just not the case.
Liam, can I ask you finally what your plans are? Are Insulate Britain going to continue blocking the M25?
Well, we said to the government earlier today that we would like for them to make a statement that is meaningful and we could trust. And I don't believe that's been sent in to us. So this campaign will continue. And
So you're threatening the government like a terrorist organisation?
no, we're making.
Well, that sounds like a threat to me.
Well, it's not. It's just the facts. We want a meaningful statement from the government that they're going to stop thousands of our elderly from dying, that they're going to create hundreds of thousands of meaningful
But
jobs
who are you
for the
to
people
demand
in
a
the
statement
country.
from the government?
Well, when the
Set up your own political party.
Well, when the government
Okay, so
are
this is
being-
going to continue. These sorts of scenes are going to continue every day. Is that right, Liam?
Well, unless the government make a meaningful statement, and then they'll stop immediately. We just want a
And
conversation.
how long will this go on for, Liam?
Until the government make a meaningful statement.
And you're prepared to be continually arrested and put your life at risk and put other people's lives at risk?
Well, Priti Patel has a job on her hands in terms of law and order, and we appreciate that.
Sounds like a threat to me.
No, we're not threatening anybody. We're just stating the case that we're in an absolute emergency as a country, and we really want leadership. We can roll up our sleeves and get on with the job. That's what we're asking the government to do. It's pretty basic, and what we're saying is a no-brainer.
We live in a
Dan.
democracy. You can set up a political party. I do not believe these sorts of terrorist actions are the way to continue with this. But look, I appreciate
Dan, you
the
know
debate.
we're not terrorists.
And
Come
you
on.
know, Liam, I think you're eco-terrorists. I
Come
absolutely
on, Dan,
do.
you know that's not true.
I absolutely
Come
do.
on.
You're threatening the government as a result of political ideology. You're putting lives at risk and you're damaging property, and you're
Dan.
also potentially causing deaths.
Dan, you
if
just
that
shook
was
my-
any other terrorist organisation,
Dan, you just shook my hand when I came.
of course I'm polite to all my guests.
What,
It's
even terrorists?
Oh my goodness, Liam.
Come
I
on.
very much appreciate you coming in.
You're much nicer when you're not on Zoom, Dan.
That was Liam Norton from Insulate Britain, Harry Wilkinson from the Global Warming Policy Foundation, and the Tory MP, Craig McKinlay. Thank you all, and of course we will continue tracking this story over the days and weeks to come. Coming up, he went viral for breaking a women's deadlifting record to make a point about trans athletes. Now, rapper and social media sensation Zuby will be flexing his muscles in the big question. Still time for you to get your heavyweight queries in before 10. You can send us your questions to dan@gbnews.uk or find us at GB News on social media. But after the break, will we ever get to see our GPs again? The positive professor